Hi everyone, it's Donna here from Clever Crafting. Thanks for joining me again today. So our little project today is going to be what I call brick by brick. It's just a nice background that is a good feature on the front of a card. So this is actually the paper pad that I used. I used some paper out of this. This is old. I don't think you can get it anymore. I got it years ago from Kaisercraft. And I'm just going to use 4 of the papers out of here, and I'm going to cut 2 half-inch strips from each piece. So basically my pieces here are 1/2 inch by 6.5 inches. So I'm going to also use a black background that I'm going to cut out with my metric rectangles. My card base that I had up earlier is Craft Card, and it's a standard A6 size, which is half an A5, and I'm using my 3rd largest frame to cut out the black piece. So now I've got 2 of the strips here that's 1/2 inch wide. They're the same ones, and I'm putting foam tape on the back of one of them only. So what this is going to do is when I make my bricks, it'll give me dimension on some and not on others, and it just adds a lovely texture and feeling to the card. So this foam tape is 1.2 mils wide, so which is 1.2 centimeters wide, I beg your pardon. And you can see that what I've done is I've done that to one of each of my 4 different types of paper. So now I'm going to cut my bricks. So this was 6.5 inch paper. My Tim Holtz cutter only goes to 6 inch, so I'm just measuring it to 6 inch on the end, taking that 1/2 inch piece off. And now what I'm going to do to measure this out, I'm going to measure it from the long end. I'm going to move it down 1 inch and cut it, and then move it down another inch and cut it. So you can do 2.5 centimeters if you're doing centimeters. I kind of swap between the 2 centimeters and inches. So I guess it depends on what tool I'm using at any given time. So I'm just sliding this along 1 inch at a time and cutting my bricks. This doesn't take as long as you would imagine. 2 or 3 minutes I think it took me to cut all of my pieces. So you want to cut all the pieces, all the foam pieces, as well as all of the ones without foam on them, the foam tape. So this is how I'm going to set up my guide. So I'm using my grid mat, my cutting mat that's got that grid in centimeters. I'm lining up my metal ruler along one of the horizontal lines so it's straight, and I'm just using masking tape and going to stick it at each end. So this is going to keep my metal ruler in place because we're going to use this to help me keep my bricks in alignment. Not that you have to really, it's just a thing. So you can see that I can move my piece of cardstock up and down underneath my ruler, and as long as I have it lined up on one side, it will be straight on the bottom. So I don't have to worry about the bottom measurement, I just have to worry about keeping it lined up on one side. So then all you need to do is grab one of your bricks, line it up where you want it to, down the bottom. You can see how I did that there, so it was even either side. I'm just grabbing a bit of my Smart Art glue here and popping it on the back, and then I'm going to stick it down. Pretty technical stuff, hey? The hardest part about this is just trying to keep it in line, but we've kind of solved that problem with the ruler. Now, once again, this seems fiddly, and I guess, yeah, it is, compared to a lot of the other things we do when we're making cards, but it really didn't take that long. Put a bit of music on or have a show running, and yeah, it doesn't take that long at all. Maybe 15 minutes, I think it might have taken me. So you can see that what I'm doing is I'm using the ruler as a guide to keep it level. Now, that second piece that I put on had a foam piece on it. So sorry about my head getting in the way there, but I'm literally just randomly picking them up. Sometimes I use a piece with foam and sometimes I don't. So I'm using a non-piece of foam brick this time. It is a little bit tricky for me to be random, but you know, I'm doing my best at it. I think it's the control freak in me. So here we go, another flat one. So not with foam. I think I'm just going to do this line and a bit of another line to show you how I went about it. And this was just lucky. It just happened to be the perfect width. So for my cardstock, not that it has to be, the next one's not, we're going to hang it off the end because we need to, because we're making a brick pattern out of it. And you can see that I'm doing this one in a landscape way, but you can do it portrait as well. In actual fact, all the ones I made prior to this were portrait, and at the end I've got some examples of them done portrait. This one I just happened to do landscape. So, all right, so I'm just going to slide that down, keeping it lined up on the side there. Excuse me. And I'm going to go again, but this time, as you can see, I'm placing the bricks in a brick pattern, so it's going to go halfway through the 2 bricks underneath it. So when I put this down, you'll see I'm just removing the backing paper off the foam, checking that it's all nice and even, and I'm obviously having a crazy hair day, but that's all right, as long as you can see what I'm doing. All right, so there I've stuck my brick on. So now I'm going to do the rest across that row of bricks. So I've just grabbed another foam one there. Lined it up, beautiful. So it turns out that the 1/2 inch pieces came in handy because I had them, they fit on either side. Although we will trim this card base when all the bricks are on it anyway, just to neaten it all up. So there we go, putting another one. I believe that one, you didn't have the double-sided foam tape on it. That's coming together well. So you don't have to have black on the outside. I think I've sped it up here to just get this moving a bit. You don't have to have black at the base. I've done them with purple in the base and a red at the base, so any color that goes with the cardstock that you're using would be fine. And you can see that it doesn't even matter if the paper that you're using as for the bricks, the pattern paper, is directional, because you're just plonking it all on. It's beautiful. This actually probably looked really nice with book paper. Actually, I should try that, or maybe one of you could give it a try and put it on our Facebook page, the Gold Coast Crafters, so we can have a look at it. All right, so now what I'm doing is I'm going to turn this around because I find it easier to use the ruler the other way. So I've just slipped it out from underneath and I'm putting it in, still lining it up there on the left-hand side to make sure that it's straight. My ruler hasn't moved, of course, because I've stuck it down. And now I'm just going to line up the next row of bricks along there. So I think I only do a couple here because I'm pretty sure you've got the idea by now. So as I said, this is not a difficult process. It's a little bit fiddly, I guess, but it's an awful lot of fun. So we're just going to line that up. Beautiful. That looks pretty nice and straight to me. This is me being a perfectionist. I should have cut this bit out. Okay, and now we can just keep building our wall. I'm going to speed this up a bit here so you can see this next little bit. And you can see that I'm doubling up on some of the pieces of pattern paper, and you know, I've got that random green one that really adds a nice little bit of differentiation to my piece. I was actually really happy about how this one turned out. I wasn't really sure how it was going to turn out because the colors are not normally my thing, these ones. So, but it did come together really nicely. I was very pleased with the end result. All right then, so here we go. Now we're near the end. I'm just doing the last one. Now my last layer here is going over the edge. So it doesn't, I'm just eyeballing this last bit. I've taken it off the ruler because it's a bit hard to have the ruler as a guide for this one. And you can see that the bricks are bigger than the gap, but that's okay. I'm still going to lay it because, as I mentioned a little while ago, we are going to trim the edges of this card. So not only are we going to just use our scissors to snip that off, I'm then going to trim the whole thing here. So the reason that I did this is because it had black edges on some and on one edge and not on other edges, and so I just wanted it all to have no black edges. So I'm trimming all of that off. This Tim Holtz cutter, honestly, is just one of the best things I ever invested my money in. I use it all of the time. It's such a handy piece. Okay, so now that I've trimmed those off, you can see how beautifully nice and neat that looks. Now, I wasn't happy with it going directly onto my craft card, so what I did is I used my metric rectangles again, and I cut out another piece, I beg your pardon, of black card, and I'm going to mount this brick onto the brick piece onto the other black one to give me a black edge all the way around it. And look at that, doesn't that finish that off beautifully? So I have this really long congratulations die, which I just love, but you have to put it on a landscape card, which is what I'm doing here. It fits beautifully across. And what I did to attach it is I put a strip of vellum. You can see that I'm wrapping it around the back there and I'm sticking it on. Just using plain old Jane sticky tape on the back of this, or sellotape, or whatever people call it. And I used the Smart Art glue to glue the congratulations to the vellum on the front. And now I'm just using some more of that Smart Art glue for this layer of my card to attach it to my card base. Now you could prop this up with foam, but I really just like it to be flat, because there's so much texture and different levels in the actual brickwork itself. So there we go. Now I did add a couple of other embellishments that you'll see in a moment, but I forgot to turn my camera on. You can see just some wood chipboard pieces that I got, I think, from Kmart here in Australia. And the close-ups here, you can see all of the different textures of it. It's a lovely card. And here's a couple of examples of some others that I made. So I hope you enjoyed this. I really hope you try out this process, because the results are stunning. Thanks again for joining me. If you haven't already, I'd love you to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Catch you next time. Bye.